The fatal decision. Admiral Zexthor of the Crixian Empire stood motionless before the holographic display, his crystalline eyes fixed on the image of Earth's Defense Minister Elena Santos addressing the Galactic Peace Summit. His mandibles clicked softly as he transmitted the execution order. In 5 seconds, everything would change. The Crixians had spent decades studying humanity from afar. They had cataloged human weaknesses, analyzed their political structures, and determined that, like all young species, humans relied too heavily on central authority. Remove the leadership, and chaos would follow. It was a strategy that had worked flawlessly across 12 star systems. The quantum beam struck with surgical precision. Minister Santos' form shimmered for a brief moment before dissolving into particles of light. The summit erupted into chaos as delegates from 30 different species scrambled for safety. But the humans did something unexpected. They didn't run. In the immediate aftermath, the Crixian observers noted with satisfaction the apparent shock that paralyzed the human delegation. But their satisfaction turned to confusion as they watched Colonel Sarah Chen, Santos' deputy, calmly step up to the podium. Her voice, when it came, was steel wrapped in silk. To all members of the galactic community, she began, what you have just witnessed was not merely an assassination. It was a declaration of war. She paused, her eyes scanning the assembly. But not the kind of war our enemies expect. Across Earth and its colonies, something unprecedented was happening. Instead of dissolving into panic and disorder, humanity united with frightening speed. Military commands were transferred seamlessly, emergency protocols activated without hesitation, and civilian infrastructure transformed with practiced precision. Admiral Zexthor's confusion deepened as reports flooded in. The humans weren't following any known crisis response pattern. There were no riots, no power struggles, no breakdown of command structures. Instead, Earth's orbital defense grid, previously thought to be a primitive missile warning system, suddenly revealed itself to be something far more sophisticated. What the Crixians had failed to understand was that humans had spent their entire history preparing for the worst. Every tragedy, every disaster, every war had taught them to build redundancy upon redundancy. They didn't just plan for succession, they planned for evolution. The first sign that they had catastrophically miscalculated came when Earth's supposedly primitive communication network suddenly shifted frequencies, adopting encryption protocols that even Crixian quantum computers couldn't crack. The second sign was the emergence of manufacturing facilities on Mars that had been disguised as mining operations, facilities that began producing warships at an impossible rate. Colonel Chen's next broadcast was directed solely at the Crixian Empire. "You thought killing Minister Santos would break us," she said, her voice now cold as space itself. "Instead, you've activated contingencies we've spent generations preparing. Contingencies that Minister Santos herself helped design." The Crixian diplomatic corps scrambled to contain the situation, but they quickly discovered that humans had another trait they hadn't accounted for. They had long memories and a particular talent for calculating revenge. Every trade agreement, every technological exchange, every seemingly innocent cultural program of the past 50 years had been part of a larger strategy. As the first day drew to a close, Admiral Zexthor received a message that chilled his crystalline blood. The humans had somehow accessed the Crixian Empire's secure networks. Not just accessed, they had been inside them for years, gathering intelligence, planting dormant protocols, waiting for exactly this kind of moment. "You see, Admiral," Chen's message began, and Zexthor realized with horror that she was addressing him personally. Minister Santos knew she might be targeted. She knew because we've seen this pattern before. The difference is, we didn't just observe, we prepared. The message concluded with something that would haunt the Admiral for the remainder of his days. "Humanity doesn't break under pressure, Admiral. We transform, and you're about to witness that transformation firsthand." As night fell over Earth's capital, emergency lights bathed the city in an eerie blue glow. But there was no panic in the streets, no breakdown of society. Instead, There was purpose, determination, and in orbital stations, lunar bases, and Mars colonies, humanity's hidden strength was awakening. The Crixians had chosen their moment perfectly, struck with precision, and executed their plan flawlessly. And in doing so, they had made the most catastrophic mistake in their species' history. They had given humanity exactly what it needed to unleash its full potential, a common enemy, and a reason for righteous vengeance. The war that would follow would rewrite the galaxy's understanding of human nature. But for now, in these first crucial hours, humanity demonstrated its most terrifying capability, the ability to transform tragedy into triumph and defeat into devastating purpose. United we stand. The Crixian Empire's first indication that they had severely underestimated humanity came not from Earth's military response, but from its civilians. Within 24 hours of Minister Santos' assassination, the supposedly fractious human populations had synchronized into a single, purposeful entity. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, Colonel Chen stood in humanity's true command center, watching as holographic displays showed the unprecedented mobilization. Every human settlement, from the crowded arcologies of Neo-Tokyo to the smallest mining outpost in the asteroid belt, moved with unified precision. "Show me Project Prometheus," Chen commanded. The air shimmered as classified schematics materialized around her. What the Crixians had dismissed as primitive fusion research stations throughout the solar system were actually components of humanity's most ambitious military project, a network of artificial quantum singularities capable of redirecting space-time itself. The Crixian observation posts reported something unprecedented. Human children were being efficiently evacuated to underground shelters that had existed for generations, disguised as subway systems and shopping centers. These weren't panic-driven evacuations. They were rehearsed, calculated movements that had been practiced in the guise of emergency drills for decades. Admiral Zex Thor watched in mounting horror as his intelligence officers revealed the true extent of human preparation. Those quaint human history museums, scattered across Earth, they were actually military command centers, their ancient weapons displays concealing state-of-the-art war rooms. The popular human practice of urban exploration had been a cover for training civilians in emergency protocols and underground navigation. But the greatest shock came from Luna Base, the tourist-friendly lunar colonies, famous for their authentic moon base experience. Transformed overnight, pressurized domes retracted, revealing massive hangar bays. Tourist shuttles shed their civilian facades, unveiling weapon systems that made Crixian military tech look primitive by comparison. "Initiate Phase 2, Chen ordered, her voice carrying to every human settlement in the solar system. The response was immediate. Civilian manufacturing plants that had been producing household goods smoothly transitioned to military production. But these weren't rushed conversions. The assembly lines had been designed from the start for this very purpose. The Crixian Empire had believed humans were divided by their nations, religions, and ideologies. They never understood that these apparent divisions were more like the layers of Earth's atmosphere, distinct but inseparable, working together to protect the planet beneath. When threatened from outside, those layers compressed into an impenetrable shield. Humanity's response was unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of martial law, humans implemented what they called emergency democracy, a system that actually increased civilian participation in decision-making while streamlining military response. Every human became a sensor, every household a potential resistance cell, every workplace a strategic asset. The orbital shipyards around Mars, which had been under construction for the past decade, suddenly completed their assembly in hours. They hadn't been under construction at all. They had been fully operational, disguised by sophisticated holographic technology reverse-engineered from traded Crixian tech. The Crixians believe they understand human nature, Chen addressed her staff, because they've studied our conflicts. But they've missed the crucial pattern. Humanity's greatest achievements have always come from unity in the face of extinction-level threats, and they've just given us the greatest unifying force possible. In the asteroid belt, mining operations revealed their true nature. Each asteroid facility was actually a weapons platform, their mining lasers capable of converting instantly to defensive arrays. The belt itself had been carefully arranged over decades, its asteroids positioned to create killing zones and ambush points. But perhaps most terrifying to the Crixian observers was the human information network. What they had dismissed as an addiction to social media was actually a sophisticated civilian early warning system. Every human with a personal device was a potential intelligence gatherer, every broadcast a potential coded message. Admiral Zexthor received increasingly desperate reports from his infiltration teams. Human children were teaching their alien classmates emergency protocols. Human artists were producing morale-boosting content that doubled as tactical instructions. Even human entertainment had been a form of preparation. Their science fiction had been training them to think in terms of space warfare for generations. As the second day drew to a close, Chen activated the quantum communication array, a technology the humans had claimed was still theoretical. Her message reached every Crixian ship and colony simultaneously. You thought killing our leader would show our weakness. Instead, you've revealed our greatest strength. Humanity doesn't just unite against threats. We evolve beyond them. The Crixian Empire had expected to find a chaotic, leaderless humanity ready for conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that had turned preparation for catastrophe into an art form, and unity in the face of extinction into a science. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was not just ready. They had been ready for generations. Operation Starburst. The Crixian War Council fell silent as their strategic display erupted with thousands of new signatures. Across the solar system, what they had dismissed as space debris suddenly came alive. Humanity's true fleet had been hiding in plain sight, disguised as defunct satellites and abandoned spacecraft. Colonel Chen stood aboard the ESS Vindication, humanity's first quantum dreadnought, as it shed its asteroidal camouflage. The massive vessel had been concealed within what the Crixians thought was merely a mining operation in the Kuiper Belt. It wasn't alone. Hundreds of warships emerged from similar hideouts, their hull designs unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Operation Starburst is now active, Chen announced across the quantum-encrypted fleet network. All ships, execute your predetermined attack vectors. The response was immediate and devastating. Humanity's ships didn't move like conventional vessels. They flickered through space-time, appearing and disappearing in patterns that made traditional targeting systems useless. Admiral Zexthor watched in horror as his forward fleet was systematically dismantled. Human vessels seemed to anticipate every Crixian maneuver, every tactical response. Later, they would discover why. Humans had been using their entertainment industry to crowdsource military strategies for decades. Every space battle in every video game had been a simulation, testing tactics against AI modeled on known alien combat patterns. But the true terror of Operation Starburst wasn't just military, it was psychological. As Crixian ships frantically tried to engage the human fleet, Earth's civilian population executed their own part of the plan. Every human communication device simultaneously broadcast a single message in perfect Crixian. You should have asked why we never expanded beyond our solar system. Now you know. We were building a fortress. The human ships employed technologies that shouldn't have been possible. Their point defense systems used quantum entanglement to track and eliminate threats before they were even launched. Their hulls weren't just armored. They were adaptive, learning from each hit, becoming stronger. The Crixians had thought humans primitive were still using chemical rockets in some applications. They never realized this was deliberate misdirection. Phase 3 initiation confirmed. Chen's voice was calm as she authorized humanity's most closely guarded secret. Throughout the solar system, seemingly innocent weather monitoring stations activated their true purpose. They weren't measuring atmospheric conditions. They were nodes in a solar system-wide quantum field generator. The Crixian Empire had believed their quantum technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. They never suspected that humans had not only matched but exceeded their capabilities. As the quantum field activated, Crixian ships found their advanced systems failing. Their quantum communications collapsed, their targeting systems went dark, and their engines sputtered to a halt. Interesting fact about human nature. Chen broadcast to the paralyzed Crixian fleet. We've spent most of our history preparing for wars that never came. When we finally encountered alien life, we didn't abandon those preparations. We enhanced them. Every peaceful exchange, every technological trade, every cultural program was an opportunity to learn your weaknesses. The Crixian admiral watched helplessly as human ships surrounded his fleet. Their weapons were unlike anything in known space, not just technologically, but philosophically. Humans hadn't tried to match Crixian military doctrine. They had reimagined space combat entirely. Their ships moved in three-dimensional formations that looked chaotic, but possessed an underlying mathematical perfection. But perhaps most terrifying was the revelation about human scientific development. What seemed like scattered, uncoordinated research across thousands of institutions had actually been a massive distributed weapons development program. Every scientific paper, every technical journal, every academic conference had been sharing pieces of a vast military puzzle in plain sight. You thought our scientific community was inefficient, Chen continued, her message reaching every Crixian ship. All those competing theories, contradictory papers, and redundant research programs. You never realized this was our strength. While your centralized research programs looked for straightforward solutions, our chaotic scientific method explored every possibility, no matter how unlikely. The Crixian Empire had prided itself on understanding human psychology. They had studied Earth's wars, analyzed human conflict patterns, and believed they understood human aggression. What they failed to grasp was that humans didn't just learn from conflict. They learned from peace. Every diplomatic exchange had been a reconnaissance mission, every trade agreement a Trojan horse. As Operation Starburst reached its crescendo, the true extent of human preparation became clear. They hadn't just built weapons, they had reimagined warfare itself. Their ships didn't just fight, they adapted. Their strategies weren't just planned, they evolved. And their technology wasn't just advanced, it was transformative. Admiral Zexthor realized, too late, the fundamental error in their strategy. They had believed assassinating Earth's leader would create chaos and weakness. Instead, they had removed the last restraint on humanity's military development. They hadn't started a war, they had unleashed a revolution in warfare that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Hidden Fleet. The Crixian Empire's highest council convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from across their territory. Human ships were appearing in systems where they should never have been able to reach. The impossible truth slowly dawned on them. Earth's influence had extended far beyond their solar system long before first contact. Colonel Chen, now coordinating from the quantum bridge of the ESS Vindication, activated the next phase of humanity's response. Initiate Protocol Odysseus, she commanded. Throughout Crixian space, seemingly innocent human trading posts transformed. Civilian stations revealed military cores. Merchant vessels shed their disguises, exposing weapon systems that had been hidden in dimensional pockets. Did you never wonder? Chen's message echoed across Crixian channels. Why humans were so eager to establish trade routes. Why we accepted such unfavorable terms. Every trade mission was a military insertion. Every civilian outpost a forward operating base. The Crixian military scrambled to respond as human facilities they had monitored for years suddenly revealed their true nature. Those quaint, cultural exchange centers housed quantum computational arrays. Tourist attractions concealed fleet anchorages. Even the human diplomatic corps had been part of the deception. Every embassy was a military command center, every cultural attaché a trained military strategist. But the true masterpiece of human deception was only now becoming apparent. The Crixian Empire had noticed humans' peculiar obsession with establishing deep space research stations, They had dismissed these as primitive attempts to understand the cosmos. Now these stations activated their true purpose. They were nodes in a vast military network, capable of projecting power across impossible distances. Humanity's greatest weapon, Chen continued, her voice carrying a note of pride, isn't our technology or our strategies. It's our patience. We spent generations building this network, hiding our capabilities in plain sight. Every scientific mission, every archaeological expedition, every astronomical survey was part of a greater design. Admiral Zexthor watched in mounting horror as human ships emerged from dimensional pockets throughout Crixian space. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for total strategic dominance. Their vessels moved with perfect coordination, using the hidden network of stations to execute faster-than-light maneuvers that should have been impossible. The hidden fleet revealed another aspect of human ingenuity. Their ships weren't just weapons platforms, they were self-evolving ecosystems. Each vessel learned from every engagement, sharing tactical data through quantum networks. The longer the battle continued, the more effective they became. The Crixian Empire had never encountered an enemy that grew stronger during combat. Your analysts noted how humans seemed to waste resources on redundant systems. Chen's broadcast continued. Multiple backup systems, parallel development programs, competing technologies. You saw inefficiency. What you missed was purpose. Every redundancy is a survival trait. Every parallel system a potential advantage. The human fleet moved like a living organism, adapting and evolving in real time. Ships that appeared to be retreating were actually maneuvering into carefully prepared killing zones. What looked like tactical mistakes were elaborate traps. The Crixian military, proud of their rigid discipline and unchanging doctrine, found themselves facing an enemy that rewrote its own tactical doctrine mid-battle. But perhaps the most shocking revelation was the true nature of human civilian shipping. Those slow, lumbering merchant vessels that had plied trade routes for decades hadn't just been gathering intelligence. They had been mapping quantum space. Every commercial flight had been a military survey mission, building a comprehensive map of spatial weaknesses and tactical advantages. You thought our merchant fleet was inefficient, Chen explained to her stunned adversaries. All those seemingly random route changes, the unnecessary stops, the apparent navigation errors, each deviation was purposeful, each delay calculated. We weren't just trading goods, we were preparing battlefields. The Crixian Empire had believed they understood space warfare. Their tactical doctrine was based on millennia of conquest, refined through countless victories. But they had never faced an enemy that turned peaceful expansion into military preparation, that transformed commercial infrastructure into weapons systems, that used apparent weakness as a mask for overwhelming strength. As the hidden fleet executed its carefully choreographed dance of destruction, Admiral Zexthor finally understood the full magnitude of their mistake. They hadn't just assassinated a leader. They had given humanity the excuse it needed to unveil centuries of preparation. Every peaceful interaction, every diplomatic exchange, every commercial transaction had been laying the groundwork for this moment. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had confined themselves to their solar system for so long. They hadn't been trapped by technological limitations or cultural fears. They had been building, preparing, waiting. And now, forced into action by Crixian aggression, humanity's hidden fleet would rewrite the rules of galactic warfare forever. Dawn of a new era. The great halls of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as Colonel Chen stepped onto the podium. Behind her, through the vast windows of the station, the combined fleets of Earth cast long shadows across the stars. 1 month had passed since the assassination of Defense Minister Santos, and the galaxy was about to witness the final act of humanity's response. We gather here today, Chen began, her voice carrying to representatives of 1,000 worlds, not to declare victory, but to redefine peace. The Crixian delegation, now stripped of their empire's former glory, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their once mighty civilization had been systematically dismantled, not through brutal conquest, but through precise, calculated operations that left their infrastructure intact while removing their capacity for aggression. The human response had shocked the galactic community not just with its effectiveness, but with its restraint. Where the Crixians had expected vengeful destruction, they found surgical precision. Humanity had disabled their military capabilities while preserving civilian systems. They had eliminated command structures while protecting cultural centers. It was warfare with a philosopher's touch. What the Crixian Empire failed to understand, Chen continued, wasn't just humanity's military capabilities. They failed to understand our fundamental nature. We don't seek conquest. We seek evolution. We don't desire destruction. We desire transformation. The assembled delegates murmured as holographic displays showed the scope of human advancement that had remained hidden for so long. The quantum networks that had enabled humanity's victory were being repurposed. What had been weapons platforms were becoming research stations. Defense installations transformed into trading posts. The very technology that had brought the Crixian Empire to its knees was being offered to the galaxy, not as a threat, but as a foundation for a new era of cooperation. Admiral Zexthor, now a prisoner of war, watched in astonishment as Chen revealed humanity's true masterpiece. The hidden fleet hadn't just been a military force. It was the backbone of a new type of galactic civilization. Each ship carried not just weapons, but the seeds of cultural exchange, scientific advancement, and economic cooperation. Humanity's strength, Chen explained, her words echoing through the chamber, isn't in our ability to wage war, but in our capacity for peace. We prepared for conflict not because we desired it, but because we understood it was sometimes necessary to protect what truly matters: the potential for growth, for understanding, for evolution. The assembly watched in wonder as human ships began a new kind of deployment. The same vessels that had demonstrated unprecedented military capability now showcased equally impressive peaceful applications. Quantum communication networks that had coordinated military strikes were repurposed to share scientific knowledge. Weapon systems were converted into tools for space exploration. But perhaps most surprising was humanity's offer to the defeated Crixian Empire. Instead of demanding reparations or imposing harsh terms, Earth proposed a partnership. The very technologies that had been used to defeat them would be shared, not as a reminder of their defeat, but as a foundation for their renewal. The assassination of Minister Santos, Chen declared, her voice carrying the weight of history, was intended to demonstrate humanity's weakness. Instead, it revealed our greatest strength, our ability to turn tragedy into transformation. We don't just survive crisis, we evolve through it. We don't just overcome challenges, we redefine them. The galactic community witnessed something unprecedented, a victory that didn't end in subjugation but in elevation. Humanity's response to assassination wasn't just military triumph, it was cultural revolution. They had proved themselves not just masters of war, but architects of peace. As Chen concluded her address, she revealed one final truth that left the assembly stunned. The technology we've displayed, the capabilities we've demonstrated, these aren't the extent of human achievement. They're just the beginning. We confined ourselves to our solar system not out of limitation, but out of choice. We wanted to perfect our civilization before expanding it. Now, forced into the galactic stage, we offer not just our strength, but our vision. The Galactic Assembly, which had gathered expecting either brutal retribution or magnanimous mercy, instead found itself presented with something entirely different, an invitation to evolution. Humanity had demonstrated that true power wasn't in the ability to destroy, but in the capacity to transform. As the session concluded, Admiral Zexthor finally understood the full scope of his empire's miscalculation. They hadn't just awakened a sleeping giant. They had initiated a fundamental shift in galactic civilization. The assassination that was meant to destabilize humanity had instead unleashed its true potential, not as conquerors, but as catalysts for a new era of galactic cooperation and advancement. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as humanity stepped fully onto the galactic stage, not as vengeful victors or reluctant peacekeepers, but as guardians of a new dawn. The age of empire was over. The age of evolution had begun.